Whew. As if you needed another reason to not get married. Haha, look at me, I'm back. Back! Why am I doing this? So I finally saw Marriage Story. I'm not crazy about it like everyone else, though. I actually really didn't like the first 40 or so minutes. Maybe it was even the first hour, the whole setup of the thing. Yeah, it was necessary, but it felt like it was trying too hard for itself. Yeah, I was glad later on those elements came into play, but like, whew, I really wanted to turn it off. Noah Baumbach? I felt too much of Noah Baumbach's life and voice in the material, and not in a good way, not in like an auteurish sort of style, but like this guy was trying way too hard to show his own experiences rather than tell a great story. It's still good, but you know what I mean? I just feel like, and they're already pointing this out in honest trailers where they just keep calling him a genius, like he's Adam Driver's obviously his representation of himself, and Scarlett is his ex. Because he went through a divorce, what was it, with Jennifer Jason Leigh? Too much of that woe is being an artist married to another artist stick. This is the same problem I had with La La Land, among other things with that Hollywood cancer, but I just don't care. I don't like it when it's too filmic, indie set bullshit like this, and there are better films that have done stuff like that and it works, but this is just like too much of a making of thing. Like he's a director and she's an actress and they work together. And it's like, oh, obvious parallels to his life and I guess Woody Allen's or whatever, but I don't like that kind of stuff when it's just boring and uninteresting. Oh god, it sounds really nitpicky. It's not a bad movie, it's just I wanted to turn it off for the first 45 minutes. It just felt, again, trying way too hard, showing way too much of his own experiences rather than maybe tweaking a few things here and there, changing some stuff around to make it more cinematic. It's not a very cinematic movie. It's more like a theater production, which is fine. You know, a lot of films have done that really well, like Glengarry Glen Ross. Yeah, I get that it's the point of all this, and it's the point that it's painful, and this is the bad parts of life you don't want to see. But it didn't feel effortless, not at least for the beginning part. Not till Charlie gets served those divorce papers anyway. To me, that's where the movie really picked up, and I grew invested. So yeah, the opening, not terribly attention-grabbing. Took me a really long time to get into it. I mean, once I got into it, it was really good. But getting there, I just was like, why is everybody talking about this movie? Shot like long takes of a play and blocked as such. The dialogue and the openings, it just didn't do it for me. I had to force myself into it. Many of the shots play out as wides while the characters center lonely in them. They go on for many minutes, even while cutting back to who they're talking to occasionally. This is not an easy movie to watch. It's like a series of independent breakdown performances, where the characters have long speeches and interactions trying to paint things in a hopeful light, but always end up cracking into dismay. Painful and realistic in presentation. It's one of those movies that mirror life. Well, what movie doesn't? But it's all the parts of life you don't want to see. Of lost love and identity, neglect and spite, of denial in the face of compromise. The interesting thing about Marriage Story is that it starts when the marriage is already over, and is about the fallout of the building separation between two people who slowly become hateful of each other. As if you didn't need another reason to not get married. The old saying rings true, familiarity breeds contempt. Marriage Story doesn't relish in flashbacks or showing what really happened or what was said moments. It's about the result of those things. Those deals and arguments and talks you have in relationships, and how what you said isn't always what you meant, or how it's received. The real heat of the movie is in the litigation scenes of the eventual divorce. Like Roger Ebert talked about Casino, I liked all the information the movie contained about the courts and laws when it comes to divorce. How it matters that Nicole's family is based in LA, and that their son Henry was born there, and that's where she wants to stay with him. Even though they all lived in New York as a family for 10 years. Because she gave up on her life and ambitions to be under Charlie's. And it's all a game to the big shot lawyers, who talk big and nasty in the dealings, but of course are friendly to one another out of court. If you've ever been in a courtroom where a lot of lawyers come and go, it's true. They all know each other on a first name basis. And they're just like, hey, how you doing? Like, even it doesn't matter who's representing who or it's traffic violations or whatever the fuck it is. It's a fucking racketeering scheme, but legal. They make $900 an hour regardless of outcome. It's fucked up. They'll fight tooth and nail for their clients, but it's all the same. Laura Dern is the powerful divorce attorney Nora, who Nicole's friend convinces her to use the services of. She dresses a little provocatively, and appears like a fiery best friend to Nicole. Adam Driver's Charlie is then forced to get his own, even though he and Nicole agreed for so long for no lawyers to get involved. Why is he forced? Because he could lose custody of his son. But Nicole would never do that. But who's doing anything anymore? It seems to be Nora and the courts and just the whole system pushing for things Nicole doesn't even want. Charlie first responds with Alan Alda's Bert, who is too kind and gentle and old for this kind of work. He doesn't know he's wearing the wrong glasses when he and Charlie first meet. That's pretty funny. He's just reading all the... He's like, oh, these are the wrong glasses. It takes him a little too long to figure that out. His arm shakes while he talks like he has Parkinson's. He appears like a loving father to Charlie. Since Nicole wants Henry to move out and stay with her in LA, something Charlie's New York-based and obsessed directing life cannot allow, he's forced to upgrade attorneys. He goes back to the expensive J. Perfect work by Ray Liotta, who he had turned down before because of the outrageous cost. But now that the custody of Henry is at risk, he pulls no punches. Liotta's scenes are some of the best in the film. Unrecognizable. I didn't even know it was him. And just like the way he's talking about how screwed Driver is and the narrative that's going to be pushed about the kid and being forced to be in LA because the family's out in LA and it's a single mother and all that stuff. And again, taking control of the narrative, just the way that the lawyers talk and skew the perspective of each story. Not even really skew, they're just actually somewhat truthful on both sides, and that really is what it comes down to. Is none of this is really even subjective anymore, and there's no objectivity of this either. It's just, this is the nature of marriage. It doesn't work a lot, most of the time. Familiarity breeds contempt, and even when you love someone, you can still hurt them, and it's just crazy. It's just fucking crazy. Another really good thing about the movie is how it shows that one thing quickly leads to another. How the best intentions can still lead to dark and heartless turns. That's why we still believe in moments like when Nicole knows what to order for Charlie at the pause in the first meeting between the lawyers. And it's kind of not as ruthless as later on, but just the fact that they're in this, negotiation of all the kid and the custody and all that stuff, and the pause for the lunch break, and Charlie's just, he doesn't know what to order, and that Nicole lovingly, still orders him his salad or whatever the fuck that she gets him. And, just that scene, the focus is on ScarJo and Driver, just the camera's on them while the audio is of the lawyers. And you can see on their faces they don't want to be there, and they don't really want to hurt each other. And why do any of us do these things? Why do we even get married? Why do we even get divorced? Look at all the pain and suffering that's caused, and it's all for nothing in this movie. It's just, they spent all this money just to end up where they would have agreed to be anyway. All this money, this pain, this trauma. It's crazy, and it's real. People do this shit all the time. Don't get fucking married. The camera focuses on Nicole and Charlie while the talking is all between Dern and Arkin. You'll notice that a lot in this movie. Obscured attention to who's being spoken to or listening. The point is to see how Nicole and Charlie are affected. Even as I didn't like a lot of the movie, ScarJo and Driver are just right in the roles. As the movie went where it was going and ended on a bittersweet kind of note, I saw why they were chosen. Scarlett is not herself in this. Super short hair and playing a woman whose side of the story has been hidden in the shadow of her former husband. The film hinges on those long and unflinching scenes of her and Driver alone usually. Like the scene where she first meets Nora, and she walks around her office with the tea, then having to blow her nose off screen. I got real Taxi Driver vibes. Of her speaking about her relationship, and it's almost too embarrassing to show. Like when Scorsese pulled away from Travis Bickle's phone call rejection. Maybe that was just me, but I got those vibes, but the camera instead stays stationary. And again, those big wides, and they're centered lonely in the middle, and there's a lot of this blocking, a lot of moving around. It's an actor sort of movie, and that's fine. That's the point, and it's just like, it's painful to see these realistic portrayals of human nature, And that's the movie's strength, and that's also what makes it hard to watch. Again, I also got Jean-Luc Godard. I got some real Breathless vibes, French New Wave, with that bedroom scene that went on for 26 minutes, and just, again, it just goes on forever, and as she's talking, and it does occasionally cut back to Nora, so it's not like an unbroken shot, but I do feel like it was an unbroken take, and Scarlett Johansson is doing this whole, it felt like 5-10 minutes long, not even sure, of her walking around and talking, and it's really good, and she's really owning it, and it's very natural and humanistic, and that's what's kind of terrifying about it. And she's talking about her relationship, and she's trying to paint it in a good light, but she can't. There are bad things coming out, and it doesn't even seem that terrible. And she keeps saying he wasn't even that bad of a husband, but there were problems, as there always is in every relationship. So I liked that. I didn't love it, but I liked it, and ScarJo's doing really well in the scene. Same with Driver later on. It's amazing how they're both likable actors, and you really kind of despise them both but then you kind of like him again. But ScarJo, I was hating her for a while, like as I should, but then I saw, oh, she actually has more humanity to her. And the opposite with Driver. I liked him initially, and then I started to hate him later on too. So again, that was the point. That was really well done. Two people who more or less deserved each other, and you know, it's fucking weird. Not quite as bad as like Closer, great movie, but where there's like four narcissistic people who deserve each other, you know, just destroying each other's lives. They're not like toxic in that regard, but it's showing that even with the best intentions, you can be toxic. You can hurt somebody else. You can hurt the person you love, the person you never thought you'd hurt. That's why the beginning is them talking about what they love about each other, but it cuts to show that it's just the writing in the couples therapy or separation guy, and they're already broken up, and then they're just trying to find positive things to talk about each other. That was a really interesting opening. Not really loving it, but good way to open a movie. Good for later on. I loved that the ending was that the kid found the note and he was having trouble reading, and he starts to read it, and then Adam Driver takes the note and starts to read. That was an amazing moment. There were some really good stuff in this movie. Again, but I'm not sold on the whole fucking thing. Overall, I can say, yeah, it's good, but I don't hail it as a crowning achievement. I really don't. Maybe I gotta be in my 40s, but probably never watch it again. It's probably the truth. Maybe I will, but you know what I mean. But back to Scarlett, in that scene, her mannerisms are real and ongoing. These are tough calls for actors. Everything is on them, and mostly their faces, in these back rooms and quiet sequences. If you think about it, camera's not really doing anything fancy at all. It's just kind of staying there, maybe moving a little like this, and it's just a big room, like an empty back room, a stage hall, or whatever the fuck, and it's all on them. The dialogue, and not even so much the dialogue, because the dialogue isn't, like, amazing, it's just real. So it's more on the performances, the delivery, the blocking, the way they compose themselves, and that was really great, the way they did it. I'm just not, it's not a cinematic, I don't know, I just don't trust me on this. Driver deals with these things similarly. He's aloof and becomes more irritated with these growing conditions. Nicole keeps changing plans on him. He shows up late and has a kid's seat that's not fully fastened in the back of his car. Nicole drinks more than she should. I should say you're going to hate the kid in this movie. Or at least I did. Not the actor himself, but what he represents. So much of it is over him and what he wants. How could a fucking kid know what he wants? And it changes. It changes depending on what they want to hear. Is the mother whispering all these things for him to say when his dad comes to pick him up? Or is the dad really neglectful and hasn't actually been listening to his son or anyone around him? The answers, of course, don't matter. The movie isn't trying to show someone is right and someone is wrong. They're both damaged people who make mistakes that the other used to compliment. It's about how you can love someone so much, but then use things against them you never thought you would. At one point, an investigator shows up to observe how Charlie and Henry interact with each other, and how they spend time together. An extremely painful scene filled with all the nightmares of a well-meaning parent. The dent in the wall, the knife trick, and the fucking monotone investigator who is intentionally awful and miserable to listen to and see. Oh my god. Oh, she was so painful. I know that was the point, but oh, that scene. They really nailed that scene. Holy shit. Everything was going wrong for Driver in, like, subtle ways until the fucking knife trick. Oh my god, that was... They really got that. That was fucking amazing stuff there. Fuck that investigator. Holy shit. Great performance by that lady. Not her fault. That was the point of the scene. I'm just... that you were to hate everything going on there. So I don't hail Marriage Story as a great achievement. I feel as though it is a good entry in a long list of hard-to-watch movies that do their job, but I could probably never see again. My mind wandered a lot during Marriage Story, and until the moment ScarJo's Nicole decides to get lawyers involved, it might have stayed that way. I like how the movie shows a lot of humanity in its awkwardness. The whole way Nicole's sister ends up handing back the papers to Charlie, the divorce papers. Oh my god, that scene, he thought he was going to see it earlier and he didn't, and then he saw it, and then he hands it to her, like, what is this? And she hands it back. That was so well done. How Charlie is still close to Nicole's mother and sister, even while things change forever. The fades to black on depressing moments that end like commas on a long list of declining interactions in their lives. And in the end, you realize none of it was worth it. Did they really have to go through all this? Just to end up where they could, and maybe already did agree on? And that's the point of the movie. A depressing aspect of life. All that money, all that time, all that drama, all that trauma, all that, you know, unnecessary anger and the divide of the kid and it just, don't get married. That's the lesson of the movie, don't get married. Ending on a bittersweet kind of note, but the way it ends, it's like they didn't have to do any of that. The whole lawyer scenes, all that litigation, the way the system uses and abuses their clients, and especially the father who gets fucked because it favors the mother, you know, single mothers. Alan Alda has that line where it's like it's designed to protect single mothers from fathers who leave them. Understandable, but then it gets taken too far. And even at the end, Laura Dern says, I got you 55-45 custody, even though Nicole wanted exactly 50-50, and she's not happy about that. You can see Nicole didn't want to hurt Charlie like that. She just wanted to stand up for herself, I guess. Again, the movie is good at showing that nobody was right, nobody was wrong. They're both very flawed people, very strange people that needed to get away from each other, and unfortunately have a kid together, and that was the whole fucking complication. Otherwise, this would have been easier. And then just it's a whole East Coast, West Coast thing. That was, you know, LA and New York, and very depressing. But yeah, too much indie film set theater shit, like, and sometimes that can be done well, but not here. And I don't like how they're always talking about Charlie and Nicole, Jesus Christ, give us something else, showing all these, like, theater actors, and it just looks like they took the camera on set and started filming the principals and the extras, and again, that works in different scenarios. I don't think it worked here, personally. I don't like this kind of stuff. I don't think it's very compelling. I don't think it's very interesting. I think it's been done way too many times. If it's a movie about making a movie, then that could be understandable. But I don't like that the narcissism of the story itself. That Noah's Baumbach, it's just him, and, you know, too much of that film set indie shit. I can't stand that stuff. Just the La La Land vibes and things. And you might like that stuff, and that's totally fine. Just me personally. I'm like, why am I watching this? It's not very interesting. Again, the movie is way more interesting with the litigation, the amount of information it has about the divorce law and the attorneys and the way they deal with each other, how they're friendly on the outside, beasts and street fighting on the inside. That was, again, really good stuff by Laura Dern. Great stuff by Ray Liotta. Ray Liotta, you can't even recognize him, and I just loved his voice. I loved how it was played in that wide, and you could barely see his face. And great, great performance. And the way they flip the narratives on each other, that was masterful storytelling there. How the lawyers take control of these narratives, and you just see Nicole and Charlie. You just see the horrors of how it's affecting them. That was the plus of this movie. So I'm glad I saw it in that regard. I learned a lot about divorce law, more than I wanted to. Makes me want to look up more stuff, as if I needed more convincing not to get married. But everything else, the relationship itself, painful. Really liked the scene. I mean, that's in all the memes. It was not as great as I thought it would be, but when he says every day I wake up and I wish you were dead, and he doesn't mean it, and then they, like, cuddle, he, like, holds her legs, and the way she nurtures him, that was a great shot, great moment between the two of them. Really an actor's movie. Really, ScarJo, Adam Driver, Alan Alda, Laura Dern, and Ray Liotta, they were the best. But the filmmaking in the beginning, no thank you, personally. Now, I read a review that a lot of this was based on Woody Allen's family and divorce and stuff, or that's what the reviewer was saying, but I believe it completely. The whole, the mother whispering things to the kid to change the mind, and the kid is saying things that the mother wants to hear and not what the father wants. That was all, like, Woody Allen shit, according to him anyway, and that's why Adam Driver's, like, so confused. He's like, he didn't say that. Did he say that? Like, and his mind, the kid's mind always seems to go more towards the mother as he spends more time with her. Not to say that Adam Driver deserved the kid the whole time, or he was perfect. It's very clear in certain scenes, like, he is neglectful, and he doesn't really listen and notice things. And so that, again, that's really good stuff that the movie was doing. And, well, I had to fix the ring light because it was all over my glasses. I didn't notice this for 30 fucking minutes. What a great director I am. Piece of shit.